And
Hi folks, welcome back aboard the Scotch Tracker. Today joining us is actor Sean Kenney, who appeared as Fleet Captain Pike in the Menagerie two-parter and as Lieutenant DePaul in the episodes Arena and A Taste of Armageddon. Welcome, Sean Kenney.
Thank you very much for having me.
welcome.
Yeah. And also, thanks for joining me today, Bob. So Sean, I wondered if I could start by asking an initial question. What your earliest memories of Star Trek were?
I had seen the show for about maybe a week or two before I was asked to come in for the interview, and it was just coming out, the first few episodes. I forget what episode title mine was, but I saw it and I said, "Oh, another show. Oh, it's in color," because everything else that was on the tube at the time, we used to call it on the tube, was black and white. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. All of them were in black and white. And when I saw this show coming on, I said, "Oh, that's really interesting." And I never watched the whole show. I just was interested in the way it looked because I'm an avid photographer as well.
Oh, cool.
So that's my earliest memory of it.
So had you seen the show before you appeared in it?
That's what I was saying is I saw excerpts from it, and my agent told me that, I'll make it brief. I was in a theater working in the theater as an actor, and a woman came backstage and said, "I saw you in the show, and I'm just wondering if you'd like to go and on an interview with me. I'm Mitzi McGregor." And she says, "Now, if I get you this job, you have to sign with me for a year as your agent." And I said, "Oh, great, wonderful. And who's this?" "Oh, I have a gentleman by the name of Gene Roddenberry. He's over at Paramount." "I don't know who he is." "Oh, you'll know who he is." She goes like that. And so that's how I went to read for the show. Is I was in the theater and the woman came in and told me about the show, and I told her I had seen excerpts from it. That's how it all happened. That was my earliest memory of it.
So had you seen Jeffrey Hunter's performance as Captain Pike before you played that character in the Menagerie two-parter?
No, I did not. And it was really interesting that I went in and he had a picture of me. Gene was in the office. I went in the office, sat down. I saw a little model of the ship, and it looked like the name Enterprise. And I'll tell you about that later. But and I sat down, and he comes in, and he says, "Hi, I'm Gene Roddenberry." I stood up and shook his hand. And he said, "Fine, just sit down." And he had a picture of Jeffrey Hunter, and he walked around me in a circle. And then he came over to me in front of me and kind of knelt down a little to look at my eyes. And he said, the same eyes. And that was it. He had made his mind up. And I understood later from one of the guys, his writing partner who came to my table before he passed away, he said they were going to use this gentleman called, I think it is his name, John Black. He was a writer on the show, and he was a brunette, and he had, his shape of his face looked like, but he told me later, Bob did, that it was the eyes, it was because they knew they were going to cover me up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what was the makeup process like, for that?
God, it was, that's when Gene asked me right after that. He said, "Are you allergic to latex?" I said, "No." And he said, "Are you claustrophobic?" And I said, "No." He says, "Well," and I said, "Can I ask why?" And he said, "Well, we're going to put little hoses in your nose, and we're going to do a plastic face mask for you. And so you have to be under for about 5 to 10 minutes while it hardens up. And we know that some people can get paranoid over that." I said, "No, I'm fine." When you're wanting that job like that, you say yes to everything you can. Yeah. So that's, and then when they put the makeup on, it was not correct, and meaning it got on, they put it on, and then they put a scar over here on my face, and they painted it in with the purplish kind of makeup and everything, and then they put these 5K lights on, which are very hot, and the whole thing dripped down my face onto my clothes.
Oh,
Whoa.
So they go, oh damn, like that. The makeup guy was really, Gene came in and looked and said, this isn't going to work, is it? And he goes, no, but we'll figure something out. And then Gene leaves the room, and I'm in there, and this one makeup kid, I'll never forget him. He was so smart. He was only in his 20s. He said, hey guys, I get the idea. And he put his leg up on a little table was by that, and he drew like a scar on his jeans. And he says, I'm going to cut this out of my blue jeans and we'll stick it on his face with spirit gum. And then that way it'll work. And Freddie Phillips goes, oh, geez, that's incredible. Oh, yeah, what a great idea. Let's see if it works. So they cut the guy's jeans off,
wow.
cutting it out. And they put it on my face, and they put spirit gum on, and they says, oh, look, the edges are up a little. That's good. It looks like a real radiation scar because they have edges still sticking out. So they put it on, and they're so happy. And they called Gene back in after an hour, and Gene was very quick. He'd go, yeah, that's it. You got it. Like that. He walks out, And he did the same thing with Spock with the ears. He tried 52 sets of ears on Leonard, and it wasn't working. He'd come in and said, no, you don't have it. Get another pair. And they went through 52 sets of ears. But that's the way Gene was. It was like cut and dry because he didn't have a lot of time. You get it right, or I get somebody else. He had to. I mean, they didn't have a big budget. So that's just, here's the last thing on the makeup. Every night after the show, we did I think I did 9 days on the show. They would take the scar off and they'd put it in a little drawer. And then the next morning they'd come out and they'd put it on again and they'd look in the picture and everything. So the last day, we're so tired. I'm like this, and they're tired. They come out, they put the scar on me, and they said, okay, Mr. Kenney, you'll be out in 5 minutes. Calls in 5 more minutes. I said, okay, thank you. And I look in the mirror and I go, hey, guys, hey, is it on the right side? I said, and they go, oh my God, we have it on the wrong side.
Oh.
That's
good thing you caught it.
That's $10,000 a minute. We would have been fired. Our ass would have been out the door and take it off. And they put it on the right side. And the guy's still calling, okay, get Mr. Kenney in here. And they roll me in like nothing happened, like this, They're all going like this. That's a true story.
Cool.
How was it in the chair? Was it?
It was about 5 hours to do the makeup, 4.5 sometimes.
Oh.
They got it down to 3 after, it was 10, 12 days. So they got it down to about 3 hours every day. I just sat there and just, you kind of zone out, we used to say. You just, go somewhere else in your head. And they finally have it ready. And that's the way it was. But the funny thing about being in that character is you couldn't talk because they taped my mouth down. So they said, that's why Gene asked me, he said, you don't mind if we're not going to feed you, but we're going to feed you by straw. I said, what do you mean? Well, you'll have liquid food during the time. I said, you won't be able to open your mouth except for a little straw. You agree to everything. So I did that.
Yeah.
So it's really hilarious that on that last day, I was so happy to get rid of that. But that's a makeup story.
So you actually were promoted to Fleet Captain, before, after Lieutenant.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was.
Different character, but,
Oh, my God.
So you played DePaul first, yeah?
No, DePaul came secondly. And
you were demoted then.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah. I think he was going to, because he knew Jeffrey Hunter had an attraction to a lot of the fans, and then if I kind of looked a little like him, he put me in the front next to Sulu, right?
Sulu, yeah.
And then in that one scene, I had a couple of lines of dialogue. He liked the way it came off. He'd come over and he'd go like this. He never was on the set during the filming. I want you to know that. It was always after it was done that he'd come on, because he felt he would be interrupting the directors. And he had the two great, Joe Pevney, and he had another director, and they were these guys did the best stuff. And so he never. When I came in as it was really funny. I'll make this brief if I can. I'm in there as DePaul, and Jimmy comes over to me, and he says, "Hey," to Doc. He says, "Hey, this is Pike," and Forrest says, DeForest Skelly goes, "What do you mean that he's Pike?" He says, "He was the guy in the wheelchair that was here 2 weeks ago." "What? You're kidding me? This was him?" He said, "Geez," he said, "you have put up with that shit like that, about the and that's the way D was. D was really cool. D Forrest was something else. I loved him. And then Jimmy says, "Oh no, this was a guy." And then I realized that they didn't realize that when I was in the wheelchair, they were talking about their conflict with Shatner. Because once you become part of the set, I can't talk. I hear everything going on. So I heard all these things going on during
You're
the
like
time.
a prop.
I never said a word. I mean, it was really, it's in the book a little bit about that, But anyway, when I did the Taste of Armageddon, I don't know if you know that, Sulu was wanting to get off the show, and he was doing Green Berets with John Wayne.
Yes, I remember.
I was navigator on that show, on Taste of Armageddon. Yeah, that one. And then see the guy in the back is he did almost every episode. Eddie Paskey, the guy in the back of the picture.
Yeah.
That's Eddie Paskey in the back. He did every episode.
Lovely.
He was the only red shirt that didn't die. That was Eddie.
Apart from obviously Uhura.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right, exactly.
Did you have a sense while you were doing the show of how successful the series would go on to be, or not?
I did, because when I would go offset and get out, and then people would find out, they said, "Oh, I'm watching that. Oh, even my grandmother's watching it." They'd say, just friends, they'd say, "Oh, a lot of people are watching it," like that. So then you kind of picked up on, wow, if that's, grandmothers are watching it and kids are watching it. And yeah, I did picked up on it, especially.
Cool. Both Arena and The Taste of Armageddon were directed by Joseph Pebney, whereas Mark Daniels directed the Menagerie two-parter.
He did.
I wondered, how did you get on with those directors?
The actors in the show?
The directors.
Oh, the directors. Yes, they were so professional. Now, one thing Gene insisted upon, and I can understand why he insisted on it. I heard this later. If you were an actor in that show, you had to have theater training. Theater training is tough training. I mean, you sometimes start as a background guy, then you go into this, then you go into that. Whereas in film, if you fit the part, they throw you in there. And a lot of times you can't carry your voice very far. But in theater, and sometimes the shots were way back, they had to hear you. Yeah, and all they had was boom mics that went over your head like this and shot down a microphone. Whereas today they put a lavalier on you here, so you can whisper and you can be heard, right? But at that time, I remember Gene saying that he wanted theater. He asked me right away, "Have you been theater trained?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he did that because Mark Daniels came from the theater, and theater actors and theater directors work really well together. Whereas sometimes a film guy, when a theater director says, "Oh, yeah, get over camera right," or go stage left, they'll sometimes say that, "Go stage left, go stage right." When you're in the theater, man, you know what he means, and it was always going, to answer your question.
Cool.
What were some of the atmosphere from the different episodes? Working with the other actors.
The other actors were, to me, they were saying this is going to be my shot. To a lot of them, I could tell. They knew the show was getting a lot of momentum. Probably the same thing I heard about was with Star Wars. At first, they thought, "What's this thing with these stupid things and everything?" Then all of a sudden, Star Wars 2, which I think was the best Star Wars movie. It's like with Trek. they knew it was going to go. It was already. They said that my show Menagerie let them be picked up for a second season. So once that was known, the actors, a lot of actors that were named, said, "Oh, I think I'd like to go on there on that show." So see, the actors that weren't available maybe during the first season were wanting to get on Star Trek, and so the actors were. They knew that this was a good shot for them. So I didn't pick up on many temperamental people or anybody that just wasn't going to be part of a team. And we knew that. All of us knew we were a team. No matter what we had to go through, we were a team. And to this day, when we all meet, we say, wow, Michael and Sarah, all those people, they got on there and they go, wow, I'm going to play this guy with a black face on and kind of looking like an alien. It was really something. And it was a phenomenon at that time.
Did you ever meet Jeffrey Hunter?
No, I never did, but I scared his wife one day. I took pictures of Chuck Norris and started his career. And Chuck even had my agent. When Chuck came to me, he was just a karate guy. And he did, he had done that thing with Bruce Lee, but he just needed to graduate and get bigger. And so during that time, I went to see Chuck at his restaurant. He wasn't there, but his wife was there. And he said to me, "Oh yeah, you're Sean. You were Captain Pike, and you were." Oh, guess what? He says. She says, "Emily McLaughlin is here." I said, "Who's Emily?" Oh, that was Jeffrey Hunter's wife when he passed away. She goes. I said, "Really?" And she said, "Oh yeah, she's around the corner." And there was like a little partition in the restaurant. She said, "Why don't you go back around and say hi?" So I said, "Oh, okay." And I had shaved by then, so I looked a lot like him, I think, because I came around the corner and she was having soup and she dropped the spoon and looked at me. And I said, I put my hands up and I said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "I'm Sean Kenney, and I did play the character your husband played." And she was on General Hospital, so she was an actress, right? She was the lead nurse on General Hospital. Bob, I don't know if you remember that show. But anyway, so we sat down and she told me that he didn't want to do the show. And she said, to this day, I think he should have done the show. This is his not Dixie wife. This is a new wife. Yeah. So I never met him, but I met his wife and she was a very, very sweet lady.
Were you disappointed that in the second season of the original series, Chekhov was introduced as a regular navigator aboard the Enterprise, whereas DePaul never returned following the first season?
This is really a very interesting, good story for me, I feel. Gene came up to me before I was leaving the show, and he said, "I got to tell you," puts his hand on the table I'm sitting at. He says, "You're doing a great job." He says, "I'm really happy you're on the show, but I'm getting a lot of flack from the Russians that I got to put a Russian in here." TASS called Paramount, TASS, which was a Russian news agency. "Why isn't the Russian on the show? We're all pissed off," like this. Gene told me, he almost imitated me. He was so funny. He says, "So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write a letter to everybody on the lot, all my producer cards, and I'm going to get you going somewhere else." I said, "Gene, this is fantastic. Started my career. I mean, I played one of the lead characters. Thank you so much for this." And so sure enough, 2 weeks later, I get a call from an agent, and she says, "They want you on Get Smart." I said, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, Don Adams wants you on there, and you're going to play Lieutenant." And so 2 weeks later,
Lieutenant.
yeah, I'm a lieutenant again. I Get Smart, Bob. And so it's really funny because I go on there, and he and Gene were World War II veterans. Don Adams had a pretty high medal that he wore, because if you watch that show, Temporarily Out of Control, he and the chief go on an aircraft carrier, and he's doing his reserves, right? And I'm the young lieutenant who says, "Oh, you don't have this, and you're not wearing the right tie." And he takes my hat and throws it overboard. I go, "You're on report." And so he gets put in the brig for about 10 minutes. That's the show. And just to answer your question, I then went on and did Police Story. And this is all through Gene Roddenberry writing a letter to all these guys.
Wow.
So you never know, I mean, you get maybe dropped from something, but somebody remembers you.
Mm-hmm.
The way it was.
Well, working with Don Adams must have been interesting, even for
He
one
was,
episode.
yeah, he owned the show. And you know why you don't see a lot of the shows on? He gave everything. He owned the show. He was the producer. With the little shoe. He came up with that. Barbara, what was her name? Belden. She was
99.
99.
Yeah.
And so when I found out later, his daughter got the entire package, all the episodes. She owns everything, his daughter. So whenever you see those shows, she's letting them go on, and you'll find them on on some of the shows. And I think they're out fully now, but that was amazing that he owned everything. He was quite a guy. Don Adams, very, very bright guy, very kind too.
Returning to Star Trek, I wondered if you have any thoughts about what happened, or might have happened to Pike and DePaul after we see them in the episodes that you appeared in.
I thought on Pike, I thought that the way they ended it with Xena and him going away, and they're back on Talos Shore to have a life together. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to bring it back. I thought they were going to bring me back as that character, even though I was let go as DePaul. I thought that Gene would maybe bring that back up, because here I could do the makeup again. We could, she was still around, and Susan Oliver, and I thought Gene might do, like that's what people do now. They'll take a Star Trek episode and they'll bring it back if they can, and they'll add on to something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sequel to.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I could have come back as Paul. I think he wanted, but I tell you what, I don't think Shatner wanted me back, because I did look a little like Jeffrey Hunter, and then he made, Shatner was a little, I can't explain it. Yeah, yeah, he was. I got to say that, and I think that's why I didn't come back, but I didn't have any misgivings about it. To answer your question.
Well, I noticed like 5 years ago in 2016, you appeared as Commodore DePaul in a fan film called Star Trek Captain Pike. What was that experience like, and did you enjoy returning to the character of DePaul?
Yes, and I like that, and I think it is something that I could actually do now. It's funny you should say that, because with Anson Mount, Anson and I have become, acquaintances. I met him at a couple of shows and we talked, and I loved him on Hell on Wheels. I don't know if you remember that show, Bob.
Yeah,
asking you
got the
because
DVDs. Yeah,
remember? Yeah,
excellent
and when Anson and I talked, I said, "Man, you're going to be good at character." I am, and so now I'm understanding that my agent has sent to Ivan Kurtzman or someone over there. They sent my picture of him and said Sean Kenney is still available, not as Pike, but it's Captain Pike. But if you brought him on because of the 45 million Star Trek fans, people will know who he is, and it will be another thing to, make the show come up with more fans. And I thought, wow, that's pretty clever. So my agent is doing that. He sent that over. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
It'll be fantastic.
Yeah, so I could play another character, but they know when you see a former actor. I mean, these people, when I go to the show, the conventions, they know you. I mean, they know if you're on something. It's just amazing. So.
I was going to ask you about your convention experiences, because I know you've done a number of conventions. What has that been like to see maybe stars that you didn't know at the time as well, or maybe that you did, or other guests from other shows at conventions, and fans like ourselves,
Yes.
You must have some interesting stories about that.
I do in many ways. one of the most incredible things I remembered about a fan coming up to me is, the chair I was in, right? And the housing went like this around me, right around
Yeah.
here. And it had the little light on there. There it is.
Mhm.
I'm sitting there at a show. Could have been in Jersey, Bob. I'm not sure. But I'm sitting in a show. No, it was in Las Vegas. And this woman, she starts coming towards me, and I'm looking over at her. And I said, "What's that she's holding?" It was the front of the chair, just that piece. That, yes, right
Oh
there.
my God.
She's walking towards me like this, and she says, "Mr. Kenny?" I said, "Yes." She says, "My name is Margaret Crawford. Um, Bob Crawford was my dad. He was the prop man on Star Trek.
Oh.
I was in our garage, his workplace at times, and I found this. And on the back it said Captain Pike's chair cover, chair, whatever. Is this something you would recognize?" And I went, "Yeah, that was the front of the chair. That was the light that I went beep beep. Want to land one too by night?" And so she goes, "Oh my God, was you?" She said, besides touching the something in the Louvre, she said, "This is one of my wishes is to have you sign this." So that was part of the chair. Now this is a fan who didn't know quite what she had, and she brought it to me. And her dad, and you know what they did with the chair? They destroyed it after the series.
Oh.
After the episode, and they got to the end. Yeah, they destroyed the chair. They kept that piece. Bob, his name was Bob, I think, Crawford. He probably took that home, got it away from them. But they broke it all up in Paramount. Crazy. That's
Wow,
one of
that's
the
a
stories.
wonderful story, though.
Oh my God, the places that people have visited and gone and done things. And just to finish this off about fans and actors too. Like I'll see an actor and I'll kind of look over at them, and I'll go, "You were on the show." "Yeah, there's my picture right down there." And it was just wonderful because I liked those people a lot because they were unsung heroes, on the show. And you know them by they had a a speaking part, but you didn't remember who they were because they were character actors. And that's what Gene would go for. He'd go for a good character face. He'd go for somebody that had a lot of maybe a voice like this, you know what I mean? That could do an alien or whatever. And of course, Felix just passed away, my little friend.
Yeah, that was
And
a
I was
shame.
at the funeral 4 days. I was at the funeral 4 days ago. There he is.
Oh.
And
Robert
he
Justman as
was
well.
a giant amongst men. This gentleman who he started with Barnum and Bailey, like in the movie, the one with the Hugh Jackman about the little guy riding on top of the horse. Well, that was Felix. That's how he started in Italy.
Oh.
And his story was incredible. So there's a character and he'd sit across from me, but we'd always play uh, like I can't see you. What, you talking to me, man? I can't see you. I'd go like that. And he said, "I'm down here, asshole." "Oh, I'm sorry." And and we do that. He and I, and fans would come by and they said this. I heard one guy said, "Hey, I don't think those guys like each other." But we did that. He was Italian. I'm Irish. I'm brought up in an Italian neighborhood, man. And I'd say, hey, I can't see you. Hey, look, can you get out of the way? People just want to see me. Get your table's too close to me. And we're doing all this stuff. And the fans are just standing off like this. I don't think they like each other. And so
Sounds like you had the same kind of relationship with Gil Gerard that way too, because some of the
yes, he
posts
did.
that Gil had posted afterwards,
Yeah.
were very funny as well.
Yeah, I'm telling you, yeah, actors have to do it because we're under all that stuff. You know what I mean? So the more you can break humor into life, and especially on sets, because it's so serious, man. Every minute's $10,000, right? So yeah, and that fan story about that person was when she came. Here's another one. Two guys come up to me, and they're very well dressed, and well, they kind of, I think they had like jumpsuits on or something. And they said, "Captain Pike?" And I said, yeah. He goes, I'm Lieutenant Woodrow. This is Captain uh, Bill, whatever. He says, we're stationed out here at Ellis Air Force Base. He said, I want you to know that you've created a code for the Air Force. I said, I was Air Force 5 years. I go like that. And he said, thank you for your service, sir. He said, but your code works. I said, what kind of a code? He said, well, when we're bombing over Iraq, he said, I always say it. Is that a 1 beep or 2 beep? Nobody knows. Nobody knows what that is.
Oh,
Trek fans. So the enemy doesn't know what that is. I
that's
said, so we can
great.
break silence. He said, that's a 1 beep, and that's a 2 beep.
Yeah.
So
I
Oh,
remember.
that is one of the craziest things I heard. And they gave me a salute and they left the
oh,
table.
that's so cool.
Yeah, they were right there in Ellis Air Force Base, which is right there
Yeah.
in Las Vegas.
I remember you wrote about that in your biography, Captain
Yes,
Pike Found Alive, which I found was a brilliant book.
thank you. Yeah, I love the stories and I love the people coming over and just, saying just something that was so incredible in their life, And Star Trek, not me, but Star Trek did that for people. Gene said something to me one time. I got a Gene Roddenberry story you might have heard. I think I may have put it in the book. But Gene Roddenberry said to me one time, he said, the reason why some of the scripts I don't okay, he says they don't have in the ending hope for the future. I thought that was profound.
Mm.
That's why I ended on a light note with Scotty and somebody kibitzing together, or Spock and Bill doing that. Well, we're on to our next episode because he did not want people to be left with a dark feeling about Trek. You want to come back to know that it's all going to be okay. You know what I'm saying? Now
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
profound to me that Gene knew that. I mean, he was a cop. His wife told me an incredible story about him. He was a pilot for Pan Am. I didn't know that, and he'd always carry an M1 behind him in the plane. Okay, because he was a trained pilot from the war. He crashed twice. He became a safety officer after that. Two of his pilots were killed. He was co-pilot. I know that story. Now, this story about he was flying into Libya on a Pan Am flight. Uh, his wife told me this story, and sure enough, something on the plane could now not allow him to land at the airport. It was overrun with a lot of other planes. He had to come in, so he landed about 2 miles out, and it was very deserty, flat. He put that puppy down on the sand, and all of a sudden the Bedouins started coming around the plane with guns. He fired out the window, she told me, with his M1. Boom, boom. That's Gene Roddenberry.
Wow.
That's a true
Well,
story.
that was his wife that told you that.
Yes, she
So
did.
because I've seen like there's some thing like some stories about Gene Roddenberry that have been written about in the book Inside Star Trek by Herbert F. Solow and Robert H. Justman, and they've said like little
Yes.
bits like are not exactly like what happened and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well,
Over Roddenberry.
Bob Justman's in that picture you showed me of Felix. That's Bob Justman.
Yeah,
So if you
yeah,
can go
yeah,
back to that picture, um,
yeah, sure.
that's Bob. Now he died
Yeah.
2 weeks after that picture, and he came up to
Oh,
me.
cool.
That's his daughter behind him, and of course Felix. So he said to me, he said, Mr. Kenny, I didn't know who he was. He's in a wheelchair, and I said, yes, sir. And he goes, I'm Bob Justman. He says, we didn't find you. We weren't going to get a second season. I said, what? Pardon me, sir? He said, no. They told us we had that damn episode, the Menagerie, or the cage in the vault. Paramount said, if you don't get that out and make money on that, we're not giving you a second season.
Oh,
Gulp, gulp. I went,
wow.
really? He said, so that's why Gene was adamant about finding you, and you saved the show. I said, thank you, sir. He rolled, he turned around on the wheelchair, gave me a little salute, and rolled away, and he died 2 weeks later.
Oh,
Oh,
He's a
sad.
wonderful guy. When you
yeah.
read about Bob Justman and Gene, I mean, he was loyal. He knew Gene had his ways, but he made it happen with Gene. Yeah.
Yep. Have you seen the more modern portrayals of Christopher Pike? You mentioned the portrayal by Anson Mount, who
Yes,
is played Pike on Discovery and will be playing him in the new series Strange New Worlds.
yes,
But there's also Bruce Greenwood, who appears as Pike in the film's Star Trek, which was
yes,
released in 2009, and actually today it's celebrating its 12th anniversary, and then in the film Star Trek Into Darkness.
right. I was going to do an autograph show with just the three Pikes, and uh, Anson was for it. I think that gentleman maybe had commitments and he couldn't do it. But right after a Star Trek show, I said, I think Vegas wanted just the three of us. No, I said it would be like a viral show where the three of us are on together and
Oh,
we'll
that would
talk
be
about
cool.
the character. And for some reason, it never materialized. I went to one person. He said, "Oh, wow, I'm going to invest in that. I'm going to get this airtime, and I want to do it." And the guy never called me back. And I think one of the guys, maybe the guy you showed in the wheelchair there, I think he
Yeah.
had commitments that he had to go. But I wanted to mention something to you guys. It helps if fans can write to the producers of the now show. Is it Discovery?
Discovery and
and
Star
and
Trek
and
Picard.
say and say that they would like to see either me, especially me. This is a selfish plug, but they if fans write in and say, "Wow, if Sean Kenney could be with Anson Mount," because Anson, I poked Anson with it, and I said, "Hey, man, if I came on the show, I said you and I seem to be, on the same, how should I say, wavelength."
Wavelength.
I said on Brave New World. I said, that would be a hoot. And he said, I'd like to see
Strange
you
New
get a cameo on that. So fans, you got fans, Scotland here, sending in, we'd like to see Sean Kenney. He's available. See if he could come on, on that Strange New Worlds. That would be great. I think they'd get a
Yeah.
bunch of people in it to watch.
Well, Anson's a great guy. He popped in on one of our on my chapter's forum that we have. It was just members. It wasn't being broadcast like the Scotch Trekker, but
Right.
we were stunned when Anson just appeared, and we were like, is this actually him or what? And we, of course, were excited and asked him some questions
Yeah.
because even then there was rumors about Strange New Worlds. Well, there was no title, but a Captain Pike based, series.
Right.
And he said, well, that would be nice, but I don't know, guys. There's so many things in the works right now. I don't think it's going to happen. 3 weeks later, it was announced that it's a go. So of course he knew, couldn't say anything, of course, for
Yes.
legal reasons. But he was so gracious, so friendly.
He's a great person.
I think he was popping in. He answered all our questions because, of course, we were excited, and we thanked him profusely for just stopping by. And it was like in the middle of winter, just right after the pandemic had started, and he was looking so comfortable with his beard and his sweater and everything, and it was really nice, and it was funny because we knew that he knew exactly. He was probably trying to visit different fan forums just to get the feeling of what the reaction would be. So,
Well, you know what? He's a good actor too.
Yes.
Not just his presence. I've watched him, and you know what?
Hell on Wheels.
Yeah,
incredible.
that's right. And you know what? I think he's born in either South Dakota. He's born in the West. So I know that I'm an Easterner, okay? But I think that I did 4 Westerns, and I love Westerns. And when I saw that, I said, who is this guy? And I said, and then later when I met him and we talked a little, I went, this guy's got the presence. We used to say that if an actor has the presence, there's some actors don't have it, but they may be good character actors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They may be boisterous. You don't have to have the depth. But when you look at Anson, he's talking like Jeffrey Hunter had it. Like something's coming down.
Great casting. Great casting.
You believe him. He's got it. You got it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a gift from God.
Yep.
It is.
Sean, you're also a commercial photographer. Just going away from entertainment. Well, not to say there's
Sure.
not a lot of art involved in that, but tell us a little bit about you were a photographer even before you had mentioned before we went live.
Yes.
You had been a photographer, before your acting career.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you got into that and some of the things that you've shot, in more recent times.
Um, I'll try to make it brief. I joined the Air Force. I was 17 years old. My first duty station was Okinawa. That was in 1959/1960. I stayed there till 1962. I had never held a 35 millimeter camera. I held those little things that they had at the time, the Kodak things. And all of a sudden on the base, they said, at the PX, they had cameras and they were from Fuji and all these cameras. And I said, wow, I got to learn how to. And one of the guys there said, I'm going to teach you how to do this. And he took the film out, put it in, rolled it, clicked it. And he said, here, and take a few pictures. I took them. He put them in the can, and then he developed it and showed it to me and showed me how to do it. Here I am, 18 years old. He said, well, what do you want to shoot? And I said, you know what? I'm going to just go out on the streets, or I'll go out and I love taking pictures of kids because they're funny. I went out and started filming little Okinawan kids, and they started to follow me, and I'd turn around and go, and I'd go. So I enjoyed them, and they'd do little things like this to me, and and they're all in the same uniform. This is in Okinawa, and the Japanese kids would always wear the same uniform, and they would wait for me to come around somewhere, and you'd see them, and they'd say, "Oh, that's some guy with the camera, camera." I'd hear the word camera. So.
Mm-hmm.
I got addicted to it, especially with kids. So then when I got home back to normal, and I was in England, I took a lot of pictures in England. I don't know if you know that, but that's how I got the bite. Is I was in London, stationed at a kind of quasi-secret base called Ruislip. It was in a shoe factory. But what my unit was doing, I had a top secret clearance. We were spying on the Russians, and this was the time Kennedy was shot and killed when I was there. So we went to DEFCON 3.
Oh, wow.
We went to DEFCON 3, which is mean. Get your guns, have them ready. Could be an attack on our base. Our base was secret. I let my hair grow long. I lived off base in an apartment. So I'd come in, no uniform, on a red double-decker bus, get into the base, put my uniform on, and they give me the drawings. Because I was a construction draftsman. I was trained in Army Engineer School in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. They didn't have an engineer school in the Air Force. So they sent us to Fort Belvoir, which is right outside Washington, D.C. Now that's the place they talk about that had a lot of UFO action, is right outside of Washington. And that's probably true. I never saw that. But getting back to my photo thing. So here I am in London. I'm taking pictures and all this and that. And then one of my pards in London says, hey, I got a couple of tickets here. You want to go and see a show? I said, yeah. He said, no, you go down and see. It's Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine doing Sleuth. I said, really? What's that? Oh, no, I thought you're going to do it as a movie, too. I said, okay. So he gives me the ticket. It's only 10 bob, but here, you have it. And he gives me the tickets. So I go down. I'm watching in the theater. I'm in like 12th row, perfect. It's in the middle of the week or something. I got off that day, and I'm seeing these two guys working as actors, and I'm saying, oh my God. And so I go back to the base, and they want me to go to officer school, Air Force Academy, because I'm getting out in like 30 days. And my CEO says, hey, we want to up you, and you'll go to you go to Air Force Academy. And I said, no, I got the bite. And they said, what's that, Aaron? I said, well, I saw these two actors, and I'm going to go back to America. And I'm going to become an actor. And they go, what? I guess we can't talk to you about it. I said, no, I don't think so. I said, okay. So they didn't send me to. So anyway, I'm getting to that because I have my camera over in London. I'm taking pictures, and I get back, and then I get to where I'm going to California. I get to California, and all of a sudden I said, okay, I'm going to start taking pictures, and what can I do? And sure enough, it just started to materialize when I got Star Trek. I found out the actors were showing me their pictures, and I'd go, that's a piece of, I said, I'm sorry, this picture doesn't look like you. Let me take some of you. And like I did with the kids,
Oh,
I
wow.
started taking pictures of the actors for free. And they were my friends. And all of a
Oh,
sudden,
that's
hey,
cool.
dude, I got the job. No, I got called in. I said, yeah, because you got to look like a heavy. You got to look away, and then you got to look mad and look back at me like this. And and they say, no, you know how to direct us. That's how I got Chuck
Oh,
Norris.
wow.
That's how I got
Cool.
Chuck Norris as his gig. That's how I shot all the Walton girls. I shot all these kids. And I started to say, kids are the best because they come back to you. They change every year and a half. An actor will keep pictures for 10 years.
Oh,
So that's how I started doing photography, big time. Like and then when I took a hiatus, which was when the strike hit, Tom Selleck and I talked about that. I saw him. It's in my book, and this gentleman would know it's in the book. But Tom Selleck and I were talking about, well, you're not acting anymore. And I was at the Outrigger Canoe Club in Hawaii, and he said, I'm working. He said, but we can't do movies, can't do this. This was the strike. And I said, well, I'm bowing out for a while. I'm just going to take pictures of kids because it's still doing commercials. And so that's what I told Tom. And I started to do kids. And I was making 2,000 or 3,000 a week sometimes
hmm.
doing kids. You charge them $130, $150, and you take kids' pictures. And then all of a sudden, two other kids show up that afternoon. You're up to 800, 900. That was a great business. And so that's how I became a photographer. And I went over to real estate people and started to ask them why they have terrible pictures. All of a sudden, Coldwell Banker was sending me all their people. And that's what I do today. I just came back from Las Vegas. Plus, I did 2 movies this last year. I don't know if you guys know that. They were what? Yeah, they were called.
Interested.
Yeah, they're trailers. But that's how they're doing it now for Netflix. And I'm still got my camera walking around, taking pictures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I tried to make that a short story.
No, that's great. That
Yeah,
is
Yeah,
but I
great.
love the
definitely.
camera. I love the camera. My dad was like that. He had pictures of all of us when we were kids.
So, have you ever been interested in like directing, like film productions or whatever, like TV or
I
film?
w- I would now because I'm understanding the technique of the filming. I'm understanding the technique of the moment. And I studied Sandy Meisner's method of acting, which I understand now that Al Pacino and Bob, whatever his name, I don't mention his name too much here, part of them, um, they now work Meisner, and that's how I work. And I think Anson works Meisner. Now, Meisner's an acting approach that I don't know if you know that, Bob, in America, that there's
Mhm.
three acting approaches you use. Technique is English. Okay. The words are most important. Okay.
Mhm.
Method is what De Niro and Pacino and all those guys
Yeah.
used in the 70s and 80s, right? And I didn't like it. I went to a method. I didn't like it. Then I found Sandy Meisner, and I had the best class you could ever think of. Diana Ross was in there. Schwarzenegger was in there, but he wasn't there that day that I was going there. Jay North, Dennis the Menace was in the class.
Hmm.
Oh my God. Fabian Forte, who was the guy with the hair, the singer. They were all going to be actors, right? So
Mhm.
I studied with Charles Conrad, and of course he got Diana Ross an Academy Award nomination from his working with us as actors. And so what it is, the words is superfluous. It's but coming out of here. So what you do, I'll make it quick, I hope, you hook up with somebody. I learned that you could put my hands on the fellow actor like this, and you have them put their hands in. The soul hooks up with you.
Hmm.
That you pull away, and you could say, and the way Sandy would do it, Sandy Meisner would say, "You're wearing a red shirt," and she'd go, "I'm wearing a red shirt," and you go, "You're wearing a red shirt." I'm wearing a red shirt. And pretty soon, all of this in here comes to the surface because we're guarded as human beings. So, man, when you're working on a scene, your emotions are right up there. And it works every time. I know people got Academy Awards, Academy Award nominations using the Sandy Meisner method. You can look them up, Sandy Meisner, the Meisner approach to acting. I use it today, and when I get an actor that's not, he's going method or he's doing that, I'll say, you don't have to do it. I'll never forget the story of Marlon Brando. When he wanted to look pained in The Godfather, he put a needle in his leg,
Ouch.
actually stuck it in the leg, so he could have that look like this
That's dedication.
in The Godfather. Yeah, I mean, that's method. Dustin
Mhm.
Hoffman used it too. He slapped Meryl Streep in that movie that he did with her, you know, about the divorce, because she was.
I heard that story.
He
Yeah.
just, he says, oh, he said, I don't want you to like me. And sure enough, she says, well, I like you. And he says, boom, now you don't.
Oh.
And yeah, he hit her.
Yeah.
He hit her. It's a true story. And she said, now you're divorcing me. I'm a prick. You know, you're divorcing me. And sure enough, she got an Academy Award nomination. Now, that's how that method acting worked with them, because they were all method. Dustin's still that way, I'm sure. Wait a minute.
So, you mentioned something about the. You mentioned you would tell us later something about the ship, or with Gene.
Oh, yes.
Right at the start.
Okay, I'll tell you something about Gene. I love Gene and because he was a character, but my story comes from Dorothy, his partner, but she was C. Fontana. Okay. Yeah, and she, you know why she did that? They didn't want a woman writing on the show.
Yeah.
So she said, "I'm DC Fontana," right? And then he had the black couple that would write. Okay, so and I understand this went on from DC. She passed away, but Gene had a nice place in Next Generation. He had a nice office. They would always give the scripts to him before they'd go to shoot. He'd okay everything. You know, that was the way they worked the deal out for Paramount. Worked out with Next Generation, and they did what 100 and something episodes. We only did 79, right? So sure enough, one day some a-hole at that studio got the idea that Gene's office is a little too big. Well, why don't we just move his stuff out and put it over in that little office over there? We need to get, you know, this guy, big guy, coming in, executive pro, you know, producer. We'll have to put him in Gene's office. I'm sure Gene won't mind. Gene shows up and he says to DC, "Where's my stuff?" And she goes, well, they moved your office. What? They moved my office? Are you kidding me? He goes like that. And he went ballistic. He went over to the producer's building. He took a knife with him, and they had all these paintings. Cut them. They took the guards over to the building, and they locked the door from the outside. And they said, "Do not bother Mr. Roddenberry, please." He finished his job. He got out of there, and he went home. And probably just had a few and sat there. And 3 weeks later, and they use that word. Remember, they came hat in hand to Gene and said, "We'd like you back. You'll have your office back." The ratings went from 40 share down to 22 because he didn't okay the scripts. It took 2 months for this to happen, and they didn't realize they needed Gene essence in that show.
Really?
He
It took
knew.
that long. I thought they would have learned after the third season of the original series.
I know. I would think they would have, but that's the way Hollywood is. I've heard other stories like that. They fire somebody, let them go, and then they go, "Uh-oh, flubbed up on that one."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the story I didn't tell you about Gene. He's a great guy.
I'd like to share this final shot.
Yes.
That I really like it. Which was you yourself during the production on the third day, I believe it was. On
Yes.
on the Menagerie.
Yes. So, it was. 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 It was it was an incredible time because we all went home and I had a weird story on that too, because he asked me if my hair would be okay to dye it white. Well, they dyed it white and then they put it on the camera and these 5K, lights, they're like this big, like this big. Now they got these little tiny things, right? Well, my hair looked like it was on fire. It was too hot. So he sends me over to the lady and he says, Gene says, color it, make it yellowish, So then she put some stuff in it and she dyed it again a little yellowish, and they come back and then they say, okay, it's not too hot. Good. We can go with it. And then they said, then he says, oh, we're going to have you come back as Lieutenant DePaul. He says at the end of the show. And I said, gee, thank you. That's great. And then he says, oh, yeah, go over to Mary, whatever her name was, and she'll dye your hair dark because I want you to be back to your brunette. So they dye my hair, but they dyed it black. And you'll see that picture you were showing me.
Yeah.
And it's black. I mean, I'm dark brown, but it's black. And so then I go home and then my hair starts falling out like after about a week. It's coming out in clumps like this. Oh. And then I tell them on the set, I said, what am I going to do? I can't act. I'm going to be a bald man in about 3 months. And they said, oh, go back and see the lady. She used to work with Harlow. This is the lady at Paramount. So she goes, oh, I didn't realize it's falling. Oh, here. And she takes this glass thing called Fermadil. It's from Switzerland somewhere like this. She breaks it on the table. She puts it in my hair and your hair feels like spaghetti, And she says, here's 7 vials. Here's 7 vials of this. Take them home, do them once a week. Okay? And your hair will come back, I promise you. Well, within 2 weeks, my hair is thick. I got it today. But it's from Fermadil. And it never fell out again. That's a story on shows. And then, the makeup they put on me, I don't know if you guys know. Remember he said, are you allergic to latex? Remember that first? Guess what? That's how Roddy McDowell died. He died from latex because of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh.
Huh.
Now they outlaw latex.
Jeez.
It's outlawed.
Even between the 2 episodes where DePaul appears in Arena and the Taste of Armageddon, yes. I noticed that his hairstyle changes slightly.
Yes.
It's more slick back in Arena.
Yes, it's different. Sometimes they can't like the scar on the wrong side. Sometimes what they used to do is take Polaroids. We call it. You know, Bob, what those are? The little Polaroid pictures like this.
Yeah.
The makeup man were told to take a picture every time you finish an actor. Take a picture and it comes out of the camera and then have it right there.
So because if they go to lunch and the guy goes like this and he comes back, he's got the picture and he goes, nope, it's over here, Larry, comb it, he pulled it over to, because then it won't match. You were right about that. No, it's really.
Is that what happened in that case?
Yeah, I think so. That's what happened. They may have not had the picture. They just thought they'd remember, but no. I mean, how many people they make up in those chairs? Oh my God, it's just Leonard with the 52 sets of ears. Can you imagine that?
Or maybe Lieutenant DePaul just wanted to change his hairstyle.
Yeah, that's right.
Between episodes.
Yeah, maybe he just had a row with a girlfriend and he just ran his hands.
That could be, yeah.
Never know.
I also read recently that while you were, it must be from your book, while you were working on the bridge set, there was something about that you'd burn your fingers on the controls.
That's correct.
Station.
Yeah, when George went away to do Green Berets, he quickly showed me, oh, you tap this, and because I'm going from helmsman to navigator. Well, the navigator hits everything. You know that. You saw Sulu doing this all the time, right? So he goes to this and he says, okay, so put your hand on there. This is going to be this, the red button. And he said, okay, but he didn't say lightly. So I go and I put my hand on, waiting for his next command. My finger burned right through the first layer of the skin. It was, totally.
Wow, I would never have guessed.
Yeah, because they're incandescent lights. They're not like we didn't have that kind of lighting, at that time. I mean, it wasn't around. So you're working on heat like a heat lamp underneath there to get the camera to pick up on. Yeah, you're right. Good. Yeah, you knew a lot about my book. Good man. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
Oh, it's so great. And I'm going to do a shameless plug because if anybody wants to order anything, there's my website. Even from Scotland, we can send it there. There you go. CaptainPikeFoundAlive.com. And it's got a list of photos. It's got the book. And gentlemen, thank you for this wonderful getting together with all of the worldwide fans. I just wish that everything comes back to normal here and we get to have the shows again. I love the fan shows. But thank you. And Bob, great meeting you.
Great meeting
My
you.
host, thank you, my host, for having me on. And we just, how do I say, onward and upward.
Good luck. We look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, come and see us. Okay, thank you, guys.
Take care.
Okay.
Thanks to all the viewers for watching. Please like and subscribe for the video. We'll see you again next week. We're broadcasting each Saturday. Take care.